James Elder was born July 27, 1934. His father, Robert, was passionate about horses, something his son Jim did not share immediately. But during his youth, Jim learned to love horses like his father, and by his teen years, he was described by his peers as being fearless and was recognized for his ability to ride just about any horse. He started jumping competitively in 1950 at the age of 16, becoming the youngest rider to ever earn a berth on the Canadian equestrian team. For over 3 decades, Jim Elder quite simply rewrote the book in show jumping and rose to national and international prominence in his sport. His accomplishments and extensive contributions to equestrian sport have brought worldwide recognition to both the sport and to his town, Aurora, over his competitive years. Jim's first Olympics occurred in 1956 in Australia at the age of 22, where he won the bronze medal as a member of the 3-day event. He went on to win gold at the 1959 Pan American Games 3 years later. In the late 60s, Mr. Elder formed a trio with James Day and Thomas Gayford that would quite literally define the history of show jumping in Canada. One of the important successes during these years was the development of Elderberry Farms in Aurora, where he turned a natural landscape feature into a show jumping stadium that was to become an important venue for the sport in Canada for decades. The 1967 team bronze medal at the Pan American Games was to become the beginning of an era for the show jumping team of Day, Elder, and Gayford. The following year at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, Jim Elder led his teammates to the team gold medal in show jumping, marking the first Olympic equestrian gold medal in Canadian history and the only gold medal at those Olympic Games. This was followed with gold at the 1970 World Championships. Mr. Elder went on to represent Canada in the 1972, 76, and 84 Olympics and was on the winning equestrian teams at the Nations Cup in Rotterdam in 1980 and at the CSIO Nations Cup in Australia in 1982. He was the individual international champion at the Royal Canadian Horse Show 3 times and captured numerous other international classes and championships in Canada, the United States, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, South Africa, Europe, and Australia. When Jim finally retired from international competition, he had competed in 7 Olympic Games, 5 Pan American Games, and 3 World Championships. Mr. Elder's contribution, however, extends well beyond his competitive international accomplishments. On his Elderberry Farm, he launched the Canadian Development Series, which began the Tournament of Champions and National Show Jumping Championships in this country. At that site, he also held the Coca-Cola Canadian Jumping Derby and the National Talent Squad Grand Prix, and hosted the Canadian Junior International Show Jumping Championships. Jim's wife, Marianne, held the National Dressage Championships and the Canadian Pony Breeders' Show on the property. Aurora was quite simply the center of the equestrian universe in Canada, thanks to Mr. Elder and his wife. Mr. Elder also donated his time selflessly to organizations such as Big Brothers. He also co-founded the Toronto Polo Club. An active promoter of riding for the disabled, he was appointed honorary patron of the Community Association for Riding of the Disabled and honorary director of the Canadian Association for Riding of the Disabled in the early 1990s. James Elder was inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 1968 and in 1983 was appointed an officer of the Order of Canada. In 2003, he was honored by induction to Canada's Walk of Fame, and recently in 2012, he was awarded the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal. As someone who called Aurora his home for 50 years and who is recognized for his accomplishments in sport and as a member of this community, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct him as a member of our inaugural class of 2013.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce presenter Kelly Howholland, Jim Elder's family friend, and presenting sponsor Dan Caldwell of Pace Credit Union. I invite both to the podium to assist in the induction.
Good evening, and thank you very much. It is certainly a pleasure to be part of this elder family, and I welcome all his family that I can see tonight, his brother John and wife Pat, his good friend Taddy, and grandsons and granddaughters, as well as the daughters Erin and Liz, and some of those grandkids are off at school, and I know they're all sending wishes. But the reason that I feel part of this family is because in some of those pictures, some of our homebred horses were being ridden by Jimmy, and what we did with the elders through the years was have wonderful times together. When I'd drive at 16 years old my horse down to Elderberry Hill Farm with great excitement, because that was such an exciting place to be. And I'd drive the kids to school, and Jimmy would give me lessons on our homebred horses, and I'd be jumping higher and wider than I ever dreamed I could at 16. And then he proposed that the horse that I was riding, that had won all the junior hunter classes that ever were in Ontario, that she go on to be a competitor in the '67 Pan American Games with his brother riding at this time in the eventing. Well, Jimmy had already done eventing. As you heard, you know, Stockholm '56, they had never actually done a dressage event until Stockholm. They'd never competed, but there they were. They were the only team who didn't have a fall in Stockholm. These were fellows who were rough and ready. They had horses that were fit. They were out hunting after coyote and fox. And in fact, John, his brother, was master of foxhounds in Toronto, North York, in this area for many, many years. And I recall him encouraging pony clubbers like myself to look after your horses well and know how to ride well. And this is a man whose skill is only exceeded by his character. He has a multitude of friends. In fact, Card has had him speak as recently as last Saturday, and he's always in demand. But the great thing about Jimmy is that he could take any horse, and a great story from Hugh Graham was that he arrived at Spruce Meadows, and he didn't have a horse. And Hugh said, well, take one of mine, and they were quite well-schooled horses. And so Jimmy got on this horse, and Hugh said, now you know how great a rider this man is. He took that horse around, he'd hardly ever ridden it before, and he made everyone realize how easy the course was, which it was not. And he was just such a beautiful rider, tremendous skill. And the Immigrant, what a wonderful story. That horse was a school horse in the United States and immigrated to Canada and bucked his way around 68 Olympics while I was in over the pond in Europe, watching this at 2 o'clock in the morning with nobody beside me while the 5 million were watching it on TV here, and a black and white TV, and I was screaming and cheering quietly so I wouldn't wake up anybody. And there they won, the 3 members of the Canadian team. And there was Jimmy. He said, well, you know, in his modest way, I think we can get a gold medal here. And they did. They got a gold medal, the only ones. Just outstanding. This man's amazing. Aurora, Elderberry Hill Farm. I remember somebody saying, Kelly, would you please ride my horse in an event, a junior event, at Elderberry Hill, just so I can say, you know, that I had a horse go at Elderberry Hill. It was such an honor. And I kind of think when Jimmy brought Coca-Cola into corporate sponsorship, which was the first, they bought one of our horses, and that horse subsequently went on to the Olympics with his brother, which Jimmy rode in '76, and he started the Canadian Derby, which I like to think it was because of our horses, because they were hunt horses, and he knew he'd win everything, and you did. You won the first 3 Canadian Derbies on raffles that you took to the Olympics. And so I had the great honor of watching my horse that I had watched being born on the farm, and I had ridden for several years, being ridden by the captain of the Canadian equestrian team in 1976. And I watched him pilot this pretty inexperienced horse. I mean, this was his first international experience, was the Olympics. And he left me absolutely speechless and just babbling on the CBC TV. It was just the most wonderful experience for me to see this man And do you know there were only 2 people who cleared the last jump in that first round of the huge, huge fences at Montreal? You could have driven a truck through between the poles of this fence. I've never seen anything like it. And that was the winner of the gold medal, Raimundo Denzeo, and Jimmy Elder, riding Raffles. Another amazing accomplishment. All the other events, well, he was always my hero. There was a book written about the Stockholm Olympics called The 5 Circles, Barbara Ann May, and that detailed Brian Herbenson and John Rumble and Jimmy and Larry McGuinness and their wonderful Canadian horses, including Kilroy, and you know, not having a fall in their very first Olympics. And then he goes on and he wins the gold medal, and Elderberry Hill starting all these wonderful things in Aurora. I'm so honored to speak about this man who's been my hero forever. He's a sportsman, a statesman, athlete, father, grandfather, takes all his, the grand boys around to horse shows all summer long and keeps the horses going too. And hockey games in the winter, and friend to multitudes of people. I am so very, very proud to introduce to the 2013, the inductee for the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, Jimmy Elder.
Mr. Chairman Ron, honored guests, and my fellow inductees. Ron, I know now why I got inducted here. It's because your girlfriend liked horses. It's true, you know, I've been very, very fortunate and very lucky most of my life when I'm still going. Although I can't match Bob in most of his. I'm trying in the Hall of Fame. I'm trying to do it. Didn't quite. I was with my wife 50 years, not 51, but at any rate, I certainly had a great time. But this award really has a lot of meaning for me because I think I'm a hometown boy. As I've been here nearly 50 years. I'm not here anymore because we just got surrounded by houses, and now I had to move to a little farm, a 20-acre farm in Schomberg. But I'm close by, and I'm here quite a bit. But when I was here, and the other reason why I'm very pleased to be inducted, because actually, you know, all of my active competitive life was really here in Aurora. And back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know, Aurora was looked on as the horse capital of Canada. You know, we had events at our place, as it was said there, the number of events. One of them, the Junior International. You know, we brought people over from all as far away as Australia, Europe, South America, Mexico, and of course, US and Canada. We supplied them with horses. We billeted them up at St. Andrews. And many of these riders and competitors went on and rode on their own national teams. So it really, you know, set a very big stage. Also, most of our team members and Canadian equestrian team members really were from this area. Jimmy Day's dad had the farm right across from our place. Tom Gayford was a little farther away. He's on Bloomington. But Brian Herbenson on my the three-day event team. And the three-day event team, as Kelly said, you know, the reason why we didn't have the fall is that we're used to riding over this up and hilly country. But it was a 21-mile endurance test. That was our second day. It was a three-day event, and it was a second day. And it took a lot of horses with a lot of stamina. But really, we all trained here, including John Rumble. And I'm pleased to say John Rumble is represented tonight by his sister Bet. And there's my friends Bob Silcox and Jackie Cattle and Joan Rudolph, Joan McKinney, pardon me. But I all grew up with them. And was especially great that we could have my family here tonight. I got 6 of my 8 grandchildren here, and my 2 daughters, Erin and Liz. And as Kelly said, 3 of the boys ride, Jake and James that are here, Jackie and Sophie. They all ride a horse. They do other things as well. But I have also 2 smaller grandsons, Pierce and Max, and they're not as crazy about horses, but they want to make the NHL. But they're also very, very competitive. There is also, you know, as in addition to my competitions at my place, we had the Aurora Horse Show, and it was one of the most, the Aurora Grand Prix and the Aurora Shield that was presented by the town of Aurora. Every year was one of the most prodigious events, you know, on our show jumping calendar. I mean, we had people as far away as Australia, and Kevin Bacon, South Africa, Philip Smith, and a host of Americans. And it was really one of the great shows on our show jumping circuit. We also, at the Toronto North York Hunt Club, which is now Beacon Hall Golf Club, we've had many great events there. Certainly on Thanksgiving Day, the Hunter Trials attracted an awful lot of people. And it actually held the Prince of Wales steeplechase, which was the first steeplechase in North America, actually. Just to show you what our game is all about, I won a steeplechase, and that's racing over fences at Woodbine on one weekend. The next weekend, which was Thanksgiving, I raced in the Prince of Wales over timber fences. My horse flipped over, and I broke my back. So that's it. But anyways, I got, as any good horseman does, they get on their horse and go back. It took me, 3 or 4 weeks, but that's the way it is. The other thing is I was just mentioning some of the team. Torchy Miller had released the farm where the Bains are at the Bathurst and Wellington Road. Doug Henry has Henry Equestrian Insurance. He was on our team that was here. Moffat Dunlap of Moffat Dunlap Real Estate. Moffat was on our team when we won the gold medal at the World Championship in France. Matt Cohn lives on the Mulock Sideboat. Walter Patey was a team member of mine in the 50s and also chairman of the Canadian equestrian team, and he was my next door neighbor. There was also Eric Lamaze and Jay Hayes. They were over by Schaumburg. And Colonel Bud Baker, who I rode on with the team, I rode with him on the team in 1950 and 52, 53, on that he became the chairman of the Woodbine Jockey Club. And he's right at Dufferin and Bloomington now. And for several years, as Kelly mentioned, I had the Toronto North York Pony Club. The Pony Club is a club for young riders. Basically, they're young riders and junior riders. And some of them went on, like Beth Underhill and Liz Ashton. They were on our Canadian jumping team. Beth Underhill last Saturday was second in the Canadian Championships. And also Chris Boylan and Cindy Ishoy that lived here, right around here. And they were on our Canadian dressage team for many years. And not only did we have hunters and jumper shows, but people like Jack Woods and Charlie Teasdale, they're my grandson's Jake's uncles. They had heavy horses. They had Belgium and Percherons on there. Bill Armstrong, just up on the other side of St. John's, he had driving horses. Adele Rockwell and Nancy Bennett had ponies. Harry Addison and John Addison had Addison Hall Farms. They had thoroughbred racehorses. And Ronnie Turcotte, the jockey of Secretariat fame that won the Triple Crown, he used to, ride up there. So all in all, there's been a lot of riders from this area. There's also, as I mentioned some of my friends there, Bob Silcock, his wife Sandy was an official, and Jackie Cattle's husband Doug, he was an official too, right up to the Olympic level. So you can see Aurora is pretty horsey. And thank goodness for Frank Stronach, because he's still keeps the Aurora in the horsey set. And I'd just like to mention, if it's not going to be mentioned, that his granddaughter Nikki is one of the best young riders that we have, and shortly I will think that she will be on our Canadian team. And I have to also mention that the people that work for me, I won't say their names, but and also the people that had businesses in Aurora. They were the ones that kept Elderberry Hill and me going. So I really appreciate, and I'm grateful of them. And along with my family, my owners, the sponsors, and especially my horses, you know, they're the really reason why I'm up here, because they gave so much, and they're really responsible for me being here. So I want to thank Ron and his committee for inducting me into this prestigious Hall of Fame, and I just want to thank everybody for their support over the years. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the inaugural inductee, Jim Elder.